Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more Total War Warhammer, this time focusing on a mod review, looking once again to Grand Cathay, as there's a lot of really cool Cathay mods. Again, we've not really known too much about the country, but little that we do know allows for modders to just create some stuff. And here we have Undead of the Orient by Paul Janan once again. I'm not sure if I'm actually pronouncing that name correctly, but this is a very prolific modder who's been bringing some life to the nation which got established 40 years ago, yet has little to no information until a army book gets released pretty much when I die of old age. So speaking about that, let's talk about some Cathayan undead. This is a mod that adds in a number of units. There's also a sub-mod too which adds in a hero. Both of them are linked in the description below, but it adds in a number of the ancient Cathayan spirits to defend its homeland from the powers of chaos. But let's not waste any more time and let's check out the units themselves. So first up we have the Unearthed Labourers, a zombie unit, but a little bit better as they've got a little bit of range to them. Nothing too special, but enough to do a little bit of damage. They are a yin unit, so you will get the effects of yin and yang. All the undead have this. They've got meat shield, weak against armor, magical attacks, also have fear. It's pretty much just having like the very early zombies from the Vampire Coast. In fact, I'd say that pretty much most of the undead here, if not all of them, are very much just sorted around the whole Vampire Coast scenario, and I think it works quite well. You get a little bit more front-line meat shields to hold out whilst you rain fire upon your enemies. All in all, I'd say it's a pretty decent unit. I've used it decently enough, and I would say that very early game, they work out quite well. Next, we have a melee unit known as the Returns. These are dual weapon infantry. They use axes, they're a Harmony Young unit. They also are prone to rampage, and they are weak against armor, but again, magical attacks. They do bonus damage to infantry. They're pretty good overall. They can also cause fear. This brings you a lot more stuff that causes fear. Some of the stuff causes terror too, so it will help a little bit to negate the troubles that you will get from, well, pretty much every single demon causing fear. They're pretty useful against hordes, which, you know, you are going to deal a lot with hordes, and obviously these can be helpful against all the Norscan invaders that you do get. Well, it's not really Norskins, it's more of those rogue armies, but they're Kurgans, so it brings you a little bit more strength against them. Next we have the Starved Marquis, which uses the base of the Mongol, but I don't know, they just look a bit more, I don't know how to explain it, just chilling in a sense. But yeah, they're pretty powerful. You'd use them exactly the same way as a Mongol. Magical attacks, Harmony Yang. They are also just really good at doing damage, just the same as I said. They're ethereal and cause terror with a very high physical resistance. In general, these are pretty useful, and if you like them in the Vampire Coast, you're going to like them here. It's just pretty much that. I must admit that I haven't used these too much when it came into game, but that's mostly because I don't know how to use the Mongols. For the life of me, I just don't know how to use them. Next we have the Forbidden Legion. So this is another Harmony Young unit, armor piercing, anti-large because they're using halberds. They've also got an ability known as Emperor's First Legion which provides some buffs. All in all, very, very powerful unit. This is pretty much what many people were asking for more or less when Grand Cathay was originally announced, because it's kind of like terracotta style mummies in a sense. But they're very powerful and very helpful in your campaign because you need some more anti-large, especially if you're going to be dealing with chaos. And, well, you know, this game is focused around dealing with a lot of chaos. You know, Bloodthirsters, Lords of Change, Great Unclean Ones, all that type of stuff. And we're probably going to get more stuff in the future. So it does help to have a bit more anti-large, which is really weird because we do miss out on a decent amount of anti-large with a lot of factions in Warhammer 3. Next, we have a single entity monster, which I'm not going to try and pronounce because I'm going to butcher it really badly, but it's a Harmony Yin unit. It's also ethereal, it causes terror, it's got armor sundering, it's got some pretty good debuffs, and physical resistance up to 75%. These work out quite well because you want them to support your armies. They do a decent amount of damage by their own, but those debuffs, as you can see, they're actually really, really good. The fact is that it will add in a lot more flavor, and it will be able to allow you to do a bit more damage to the enemy. Even though there's not that many uses of them, having this and another unit that we'll cover very soon, it kind of synergizes really, really well. The unit in question is the Incorruptible Sage, which acts as a short-range artillery piece, is both a master of yin and yang, meaning that you'll get the bonuses all around if you just keep that next to your units, and overall it's pretty good. It's got a decent explosion, which can pretty much throw enemies around, and yeah, I mean, it's probably better shooting than it is in melee. At least I haven't noticed too much of a difference in melee. That's from my own experience. But all in all, it does help and it is incredible for support. Lastly, we have the Funeral Director. This is a hero character and you'll need a second mod, but it synergizes incredibly well. It was done by the very same modder. Now, the Funeral Director has access to magic, a mix of the Law of Death and the Law of Fire, and also has a few different effects, as you can see. Some abilities which are very, very good. They can help a lot, especially the one that reduces enemy physical resistance, because if you're dealing against Nurgle forces, it really helps. It is quite a noticeable thing. All in all, it's a great support character, and it gives you a bit more magic, because, well, let's be honest, Cathay is kind of lacking in terms of magic at the very moment, so having a bit of a mix also just gives you a bit more flavor. So all the units themselves, including the sub-mod, can be found in the same building, and this is a new tree which is available to you at tier 2 all the way up to tier 4. You can see that the units are spread out quite nicely. The hero is also available at tier 2, which I think works out quite well, because, well, you know, especially with, let's say, for example, Zhao Ming here, you start off at tier 2, so you can recruit it after a second turn, and you will notice the building is yin focused, so it's very important to know that, and as you progress through it, it will also bring you negatives, reducing your overall growth. It's -5, -10, -20, but it gives you bonuses to removing of corruption, which does help against any chaos forces. Recruiting the hero works as normal. It's in the Astromancer section when you go to recruit a hero, and yeah, it's pretty simple. They've got their usual stuff that you can see with traits and all that. It's a very streamlined hero. It doesn't have a lot of skills, but it does have its own unique skill line, which focuses around just a few buffs here and there, a few hexes. These are the ones that you saw before. You've also got some stuff to reduce the Winds of Magic cost for some of your fire spells, some of your very useful fire spells, especially if you're fighting against Nurgle, I might add. So all in all, works out well. It's got decent stats. I personally, obviously I'm not the modder, but I personally would have thought that a mount would have been useful. But if you keep her well defended around an army of undead, she should be fine anyway, like without any issues really. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to showcase a battle. This would be only using the new monsters. Obviously, there's no Lord choice at the moment against a force of Nurgle, because I figured, you know, they'd be the most durable. And I will say that it's pretty tough in general. It gets a little easier depending on how you play. And just overall, I think I've played for about 5 or 6 hours with this mod active, and it was pretty interesting. I must say that going full undead is not going to always work. You will be quite strong, but it very much depends on how your playstyle is. I think a healthy mix of both living and undead units works out quite well, but then again, it could be completely different for you. You could want to have something just focusing full undead, or just a little bit of a mix. It's quite versatile, I must say. The great thing is that there's a lot of Cathayan mods, so you can mix and match as you choose, and end up with a massive amount of possible units. Though I must say that the undead feeling was kind of cool, because it was like, well, what if we end up getting some sort of Jade Vampire faction one day? It's more or less what I would imagine to get, you know? You want some undead, you want a little bit of gunpowder, because obviously this is a faction which is used to having some sort of ranged weaponry, nothing too big because it'd still be zombies. I don't know exactly how it would work for the Jade Vampires. Well, we don't know anything about it just yet, but this gave me that type of feel. I don't know what happens in the future. Eventually we'll get it in the form of DLC most likely, and we can see how the interpretation holds up, but I think this is a pretty good one, honestly. I think this is more or less what falls in a lot of people's headcanon. But this is obviously without a Jade Vampire, but just going into the Cathayan underworld type of situation, maybe with a Death Dragon bringing them back. Might be kind of interesting. But regarding the battle, well, I must say, I did struggle a little bit here. It's definitely a bit different because you're dealing with quite a durable faction, and I don't have all my big hitters, but they are able to hold, which is great, not having everything just running away. If you're looking for something very different to your normal Cathayan campaign, I'd say try this out. I'm going to have them both linked in the description below. I'll let the rest of the battle play out so you can see more or less what I was doing and how I almost failed. And yeah, you guys have a great day, and hopefully you have a nice Cathayan campaign.
dragons chose me! Subordinate only 10 dragons! Prepared! Stand your guard! No mind is sharper!
Ready, as always!
Born to command!